They love. Can I just say they love him in Russia? I'm not even kidding. I just pressed the button, and Chris comes out. Hey, tell me what the phone do.
I'm Michael Jackson in Russia. They were just like, I mean, they went nuts. I was sitting there like, yeah. I was like, when's your next trip? So glad I had a witness. To have someone from America, from Atlanta, to see this.
And to me, it was because of the record and music. It was big. But hearing this dude live, though, be like, tell me what you gonna do. And it's just, like, I know the guy. I already know what he sounds like. I almost forgot to hit play because I was like, oh.
Like, you're being touched.
He's like, job gone. Job gone. Stone, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do, Stone? Stone, what you gonna do? Sorry, so go ahead.
But yeah, so fast forward to now.
So back to what I was saying.
What's up, friends, family, and fans? Welcome to Life. This is where we listen and inspire friends in entertainment.
And everywhere.
Ooh, that's right, because life happens to everyone. Mm-hmm. We have an amazing guest with us today, Mr. Chris Willis. What up, man?
Thank you.
There we go.
No, I'm good.
Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Is that bad? Am I going to get canceled now?
I don't even know what it was. Don't pretend we didn't see it.
I was appropriating.
We know that your heart is real and legitimate.
Heart is real.
No, I'm good. I'm really glad to be here. I'm excited to be here. This is my first podcast that I've been sitting on, thinking about doing one, but yeah.
Really?
Right on.
You've never been on a podcast? You?
No.
How is that
that's
possible?
not true.
Okay. I was going to say.
This is my third podcast. But
all right, cool.
The other ones were Facebook Live.
Okay.
So this is technically my first podcast.
Oh, that works. I mean, that makes us.
Which is fine. I'm a virgin. It's fine. I love it.
That's
I'm
a beautiful number.
There it is.
I'm no longer a virgin. You all are taking me to the pearly gates on this one.
Oh, there it is.
Thank
we are
you.
cherry popping today. Okay, so Chris actually is a good friend of mine, and I wanted him on here because you, sir, for the longest time, before everyone was trying to do this, had pretty much mastered the whole independent game.
Didn't even know it, but yes,
you know,
I
didn't even know it because it wasn't a thing then. And the thing is, it was a conscious choice, right?
It's more of an accidental choice. It's now more conscious and deliberate. I don't think I really knew I was an independent artist because you were talking about this at the table. I wanted to be a mainstream artist. That was my dream. That was my goal. I wanted to get signed, get a deal, get on the charts, get on the radio, do the stages. I wanted to be Michael Jackson. Come on. I wanted to be Michael Jackson, Luther Vandross, Jeffrey Osborne, James Ingram, Tina Turner, Seal.
Everybody.
Lenny Kravitz. And I think if you really think about it, if you really look at me, and this is my ego talking, I'm an amalgamation of all of those things. But no, yeah. So
can I stop you real quick?
I'm thinking we got the next Joker on our hands.
I gotta ask you something because I didn't hear you say rants or anything like that. I heard you say a whole lot of other names that would fall under the secular banner. However, I do know that when you came into the industry, I believe you were a gospel artist.
I was a gospel artist, and I was raised in the church, Seventh-day Adventist.
Okay. How do you make that transition from? Well, let's wrap all of this up.
Good.
One,
from No Fun on
accidentally
Saturdays.
becoming an independent artist, but also how do you make the transition from gospel music to secular music in the process of accidentally bumping your head on independent music?
Boy, I tell you what, it's a lot. So first off, being raised in the church, we were in the church every week.
Yes, you were.
Every Saturday, every Friday, every Wednesday, we were in somebody's church singing.
Old people meeting, young people meeting.
Oh man, we were doing it all, and it was fun. I loved being in church. It was like, I mean, if you don't know anything else, you just do what you know, and that's what we did. So, and then not only were we in church, my dad was singing, my mom was playing the piano, so we were up there watching them, seeing that modeled, for us. So we, we had music in our blood, and I started playing the piano when I was a kid, listening to the TV and just emulating anything I could hear. And then before I know it, my brothers and sisters and I were singing harmony in a quartet. My dad taught us some music, and we just kind of took the ball and ran with it. And then my mom playing the piano, she showed me a few things, and then I could play by ear. So anything I could hear, I could play. So my exposure to music was crazy because anything I could hear, and all four of us, we could all sing harmony. So we started singing songs in church. And so it just kind of was the way things happened, and then evolved to singing in groups and choirs. And when I went to college, I was singing in groups and choirs and, studying design as well. And I'll never forget one of my supreme idols, Mervyn Warren, who was in the group Take Six and Special Blend back then.
Right.
He said, "Have you ever thought about a career in music?" And it was like the world stopped spinning, like that record needle just scrapes. It was like that. I was like, oh, man. I never really thought about a career in music, but that was like, maybe I should think about a career in music. After I graduated from college, I went home and kind of trying to figure out what I was trying to do. I studied graphic design, but I was still kind of feeling that passion for music, but not really knowing what to do or how to do it. And I got a call from a friend of mine from college that said, hey, there's a spot in this group called the Heritage Singers. I want you to join. You got to come out and audition, fly out and audition. Basically, you got the job. So I got the job. My first job in music was with a gospel group called the Heritage Singers based out in California. They were an Adventist-based group, but they had other people from other religions. And they were an independent group. They didn't really have a deal. They did their own music. They recorded their own music. They sold their own product. They had their own bus. They toured. And we toured like 300 concerts a year.
Wait, what?
Yes. Wow. We were the singers and the crew. And I mean, I was taping down cables. And I was hoisting speakers on top of stands.
Yo.
Do that, have worship, get up on stage and sing. And everybody swapped solos. I had one of the bigger solos.
Prayer before concert was like,
prayer before concert.
God just bless everybody.
It's your time to pray.
So listen, after the concert, go back to the record table and sell records. That's when they were selling CDs and cassettes back then, so they don't do that anymore. But and then after that, tear down everything, load the bus up, and move on to the next show.
Next city. 300 shows.
So that was my first job. And so prior to that, I was in conversation with Mervyn Moore, and this very same man, and said, hey, I've got this label deal. I'm going to produce artists, and I want you to be my artist. And I'm like, okay. So Gail Hamilton was managing Take Six at the time, and I started talking with her as a manager. I found an attorney. We negotiated the deal. Next thing I knew, after the first 2 years of Heritage Singers, I moved to Nashville, and I got my first deal with Warner Brothers Records as a gospel artist when their new label, Warner Alliance. Knowing absolutely
were you the
nothing.
First
I was not the first.
Okay.
Take Six was on there.
Take Six was already there.
There was a whole bunch of other gospel artists. But I'm stepping in there thinking, oh yes, I made it. I've made it. I've signed. This album's gonna come out. It's gonna be awesome. I get there.
I'm on my way to be a Michael Jackson.
I finished the record, and I was focused on gospel because I'm like, okay, looks like I'm supposed to be a gospel artist. And then of course in those days, if you weren't singing gospel, I always heard everybody say, sing for the Lord, sing for the Lord. Don't sing for the devil, sing for the Lord. And I was like, okay, I'm going to sing for the Lord. I don't want to go to hell. I want to just kind of, do the right thing and do the, even though in my mind, I'm like,
Johnny loves that.
I want to be that Michael Jackson. I can't get that Michael Jackson out of my head. So I was like, let me just table Michael Jackson for a minute. Let's focus on Jesus. Got the deal, finished the album. They canned the project. Boom. Not going to come out. Man. Never saw the light of day. Boom, fire, bomb, death and destruction, mad, anger, angry at the music business, angry at white people.
How much time? How much time between?
Oh my God, that was, between Heritage Singers and the deal, probably about maybe a year, so just a blur.
So it happens fast.
Then after that was 6 months of just, what am I going to do? Am I going to go back to Ohio? Am I going to stay in Nashville? And so I met so many incredible singers and songwriters in that recording process. I basically called Bob Bailey and Vicki Hampton and Donna McElroy and Kim Fleming and said, hey, can you call me in on some sessions? I don't know how I thought of that, but I'm like, this is a way to kind of stay in the music, even though I wasn't, signed. I was like, one way or another. Oh, because one of the things they were saying was, one of the reasons the album wasn't coming out was that nobody knew me. And I thought, okay, well,
because the album isn't out yet.
That's your job as a record label. Yeah. Tell people who I am. Like, do that part.
Right.
Make them know me. So, I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to solve that. I'm going to sing on every record I can because people are going to know my name the next time.
You know anyone named Roger Ryan by any chance?
I do. Roger Ryan is one of my best. Roger Ryan was the man that called me to join the Heritage Singers.
Get out of town.
Roger and I went to Oakwood College. He's the reason why I joined the Heritage Singers.
Yo.
He's the reason why I met my wife, Jake Leisky, who we'll talk about later.
Are you kidding me right now?
He was in the group at the time. That's how we met. Worlds colliding. I know what I meant. I know it's crazy. But anyway, about the gospel music. So I schlepped it in Nashville, singing on everything. I worked at Fridays. I did whatever job I could do and sang. And that turned into...
we've never done this before.
What's that?
Hey, Roger.
Hey, what's up, man?
I am sitting here doing a podcast. This is the second time that I'm calling you asking if you know a certain person.
Wow.
So I am sitting here right now on my podcast. We're live on the podcast right now with Chris Willis.
Oh, no, I don't know him.
Man, this is crazy. This is such a small world. He's giving us his history. He's like, oh yeah, Roger's the one that asked me to join the group. Roger's the one that introduced you to my wife. I was like, Jesus, Roger's the man.
Roger's the gatekeeper. He's the networker. He's the connector.
I was just fortunate to meet Chris at a time in his life. You know, he was 15 when I first heard him. He came to Oakwood, and I just never heard anybody sing like that, just to be honest.
Right.
And I knew that music was definitely in his future. And, you know, honestly, we knew some things. We didn't know everything. We knew what we heard. And, you know, I tried to pick songs that I thought Chris could shine on. And when I graduated, I went out to this group, as he probably told you, in the middle of California somewhere. And I made a deal with them. I said, Chris comes out here, and he, you know, it was the Heritage Singers, and they're a part of our story and a part of our past, and a part in our future. They were actually really nice people, you know. But I made a deal with them, and I said, Chris comes out here without any audition, you know. So
wow, that's
I called Chris. I know it is. I called Chris and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm working at a country club." I think he said he was waiting tables or something. Of course, you're on a podcast. I won't tell you what I was thinking. When he said that, I definitely wasn't thinking, you know, World Tennis Federation. And I just said, "Dude, pack your bags. You're coming to California." And he got there and he sang right in the living room. There was a piano there, and he sang right there. And the owner of the group, director of the group, started crying. And and one thing led to another. And Chris is an important part of my story. He is one of the best singers in this industry, and I'm talking about anybody that's out there singing now. And I won't name the guys because they'll all get salty, but none of them can stand beside Chris and sing. And I'm talking about either a pop guy that does the opera stuff, which I won't name, or a guy who writes the cool stuff and is a great activist, or an R&B pop guy like this guy Chris right here. He outsings all of them. Wow. And honestly hasn't gotten all of the stuff that he should get because of the way our business works. Like the guy you introduced me to before, same story with me and him, right? They're just not ready for, sorry to say, they're just not ready. Sometimes the industry is just not ready for people like us that look like us, that really have the ability to actually move things forward. We're actually overqualified sometimes, and that's actually a scary place to be in the industry at times, because Barry Gordy saw it in artists. People see it in artists now, but they don't actually say, I'm going to do something to make sure that you are where you should be. Right. They look at you and they go, oh, okay, great voice. Like people used to compare Chris to Larnell Harris. Like seriously. Wow.
I mean, I'm saying wow. I mean, it doesn't shock me because I know how Chris sings, but for those who haven't heard him, wow.
Yeah, no, awesome. The world's cheated that they haven't heard this guy. He's amazing. Well, and he knows I'm saying that because that's real talk for me.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you don't have to go far to hear it for yourself. So, man, I thank you for always taking my call, bro. Seriously.
You called me. I just got back from Dubai like 2 days ago. So
nice. Well, thanks, man, for chiming in. And I just wanted to, let Chris know that I do know a couple cool people.
Love you, Raj.
Love you too, Chris. Love you, bro. All right, bro.
All right,
y'all
man.
take care.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, peace.
So you are Michael. No one can stand the candle to Michael. Nobody stands the candle to Michael.
Yeah, he wasn't naming names, but we know what group he was in. Take 5.
It's fine.
Take 7.
It's fine. Yeah, it's cool. It's good. We're good.
It's fine. Yeah. So
how does that? Someone like Roger,
I
mean, I don't to say what he just said about you, and earnestly mean every single word, and then people who know who you are and know that that's the truth. You've always come off, and I mean, this is my first time meeting you in person, but you've always come off as one of the more humble people that I know. But does that give you a little bit of, me? I saw you doing your thing, but I mean.
Absolutely. I always remember when I was younger a term called false humility, and that's never been a problem for me. I love, it never gets old hearing that kind of verbal affirmation and support. I receive it and I give it. Roger is phenomenal. I mean, he's one of my favorite people on earth and incredibly talented.
Yeah, crazy musician.
The pathways and causeways and networks that play around in his mind, he's able to call that up and play. It's like he's a walking orchestra. It's just, he's amazing. He's a phenomenon.
When's he coming up here? I'm just
I
wondering.
love him so much.
Don't know, but I'm gonna go down. I went down there to work with him once, and I'm gonna go down there again because I actually have a joint. But anyway, this is Chris's moment.
No, I love it. I love it. It never gets old. I mean, it's kind of like for all of the times when I have hit my head up against a wall or gone down a path and thought, oh, this was the way, and it ended up not being the way. When all that affirmation comes back, it lets me know, okay, I'm on the right track. This is affirming that, keep going, keep trying, keep doing it, keep shining, keep glowing, keep finding a way to be positive about things.
So for those that are listening who may have never heard your name before, right? That's quite possible.
Yeah. I don't know how that's possible, but it's
Right.
There we go.
But so I mean, let's just go ahead and get it out of the room. Obviously, one of your biggest hits. Obviously with one of the biggest DJs in the world, David Guetta.
Yeah. So fast
After the
forward.
Love Is Gone. Can you kind of break down how that came about and all that stuff?
So I wanted to kind of build an arc, but okay, I can jump in on
I
that.
feel you had a plan.
Oh, yes, I did.
You had a plan.
Stick with me.
All right, let's go back with your plan.
So let's go backwards because it's critical to the story.
Y'all, my guests.
It's really critical to the story because you asked a very good question. How did I get from the church all the way there?
There we go. Let's follow that. I like that.
So what's one critical piece about the gospel was that after that first album failed, I felt like I failed. And there was a ton of affirmation that came from the singers and producers that were like, no, you're awesome. We don't know what you're going to be or who you're going to be or what you're going to do, but we believe in you. And so that collective nod from the whole Nashville music community was phenomenal. Still searching what to do. And so I ended up doing a lot of demos and singing for people. And those demos were heard by Des Dickerson. Des Dickerson used to play for Prince. And then he found God and joined a label called Star Song. And his assistant in A&R, I think, or partners was Jackie Patillo, who was married to a guy named Leon Patillo, who was a gospel artist. So there was all kinds of really great male figures in my life that really helped to kind of push me forward. So Jackie ended up signing, after Des left the label, signing me. And that album did actually come out. I wrote about 8 songs on that album. And that album is my self-titled Chris Willis gospel album. And those songs are going to give you gospel, but they're going to give you that James Ingram, that Jeffrey Osborne,
Right.
all that stuff that was.
Was this when she was at Benson?
She might have been at Benson, but at this time she was at Star Song.
At Star Song at the time.
To Benson later.
Gotcha.
So, and I want to get that done real quick because that album came out and that was great because some of those songs did actually get on the radio because that was another dream I had of mine as a child.
Hearing your voice
was
on
to hear
radio.
my songs on the radio.
Yeah.
So that was like, okay, tick that box, great. And signed to a label, great, awesome. So, being signed and being a gospel artist, but which I also learned the nuance between gospel and Christian music, which I didn't really know was a thing because I'm thinking I'm gospel, but I'm actually a Christian and I was playing on Christian radio. Which meant, more of the non-brown people were listening to the Christian radio and more of the brown people were listening on the gospel radio.
Crossover before there was crossover.
Precisely. I was thinking, okay, it doesn't matter. I'm me, so everyone's going to love what I'm doing. And no, that was not the case. I'll never forget, I went to a gospel music workshop and one of the retailers, I was like, so how's my album doing? I was like, well, more white people are buying your music than black people. And it was just like, ouch. I was like, oh, I failed
Now, why
again.
was that an ouch?
Well, because I felt like my goal as an artist was to merge those worlds.
Oh, okay.
To get whoever was listening to whoever listened to the music, no matter what color their skin was, to be uplifted by the music. But that was just the way the business was run back then. So that album was alive. I toured, and thankfully, I did play in the Christian market because I worked a lot. I toured a lot. I met a lot of phenomenal artists, Larno Harris, Sandy Patty, and we did a Christmas tour one year. And then after that tour, EMI bought the smaller independent label. Star Song was an independent label. So here I was, an independent artist, thinking I was signed and I was a mainstream artist, but I was actually signed to an independent label. Just kind of in my mind still, I'm Michael Jackson, I'm going in that path. So they dropped me, along with probably whoever else, but kept some of the other artists that were there. And I was kind of feeling hurt and disturbed by that. But another really good friend of mine that I met later on, Ty Lacey, wrote a lot of songs with me, and he was the one I was doing a lot of his demos, and those demos were the ones that were heard by Star Song and that got me signed. And so kudos to Ty. And he said to me, embrace it as freedom. So that was the moment where I was like, okay, I really tried to do this gospel thing. I really tried to kind of fit my round self into that square peg, and I just decided to embrace it as freedom. Okay, at that point, I was like, okay, you know what? Now it's time for my inner Michael Jackson to come out. I'm going to do whatever style of music I can possibly do. Next thing I know, Ty Lacey introduced me to Desmond Child. Desmond had been working with Ricky Martin, and he did all the huge songs with Aerosmith and Bon Jovi and Cher, and I didn't really know who Desmond was, but when he said Ricky Martin, I knew exactly what was going on. So next thing, Ty goes, Desmond's going to call you. Wow. I want you to come to Miami and do some backups on Ricky Martin. And so when he calls you, do what he says. So Desmond called me. Chris, this is Desmond. I want you to come to Miami. I got on the plane. I went to Miami. And I walked into Desmond's house, and it was like God was saying, okay, this is what I want you to do.
I don't want you doing my music. I want you doing this other stuff. Leave my music alone. Don't stop singing for me.
Well, I think it was more than anything that. It was, this is where you have the potential to go.
Right.
Beyond the limits of whatever it was, whether it was the church.
Yeah, because you weren't even limited in gospel. It was that one segment of Christian music that you were getting exposed to.
That was a mind changer for me because I was like, okay, I'm going to really lean into this. So I'm doing backups for Ricky Martin. I'm doing backups for Kelly Clarkson, and because he was working with the American Idol artists. And I'm in Miami and I'm working. Next thing, Desmond invites me to co-produce a band from France called 2B3. There's a boy band. During that time, it was NSYNC and all those boy bands. So Desmond was like, okay, this is my chance. I'm gonna turn this boy band into this French boy band into an English singing boy band. So my job was to coach them into singing and to singing in English because their native tongue was French. And I lived in the house with them. I took them to their Berlitz classes so they could learn better English. We played a lot on the beach. We worked out. We did a lot of things together. And we finished the album. We got to France, and I was the MD for the band to promote them. And the album bombed. Nobody bought it. It totally alienated their base, which is another lesson that I learned about your base. Really cultivating your base and really serving your base is really critical to the success of the project. Who knows why the album didn't work? But while I was there, Philip, Adele, and Franck, the three, and Philip is no longer with us, God rest his soul. They introduced me to David Guetta, and I had no idea who David was.
Gotcha.
And at the time, he and his wife Kathy were the king and queen of the nightlife. So that basically meant they owned Le Bandouche, which was the biggest club. It was the hottest club in the scene in Paris, and anyone wants to be in that room. And David started there doing the odd nights, and they had built their profile up in France. To be superstars, and labels had been courting David, mainstream labels, Virgin, EMI, everybody had been courting him, and he'd been turning them down. Finally, he said yes. And the next day after I met David, and that was all the backstory, which I didn't know before. I was meeting David, and I saw him in this velvet shirt and these sparkling crystal cufflinks. I'm thinking, who's this guy? Is this another guy who's going to say, hey, can you sound a little more like Brian McKnight? Can you sound a little bit more like Lenny Kravitz? Can you sound a little bit more like Seal? Because that's what I was experiencing when I did in Nashville, doing all the demos of like, okay, I was the guy that did all the songs, all the soul records that they were pitching to all the mainstream artists, So the next day, he had a track. He and Joachim Garraud. Joachim was the guy who made all the music. He's a genius, classically trained, just amazing. Just like my brother, we met, we connected immediately. And David had this idea to pay homage to Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream speech, which completely resonated with me. The gospel, the Christian, and growing up in the black church and going to white schools and having people shout out nigger behind my back. It was just like, I kind of really resonated. So it was full circle to have this opportunity to really pay homage to the speech. Yeah. And he basically wanted to focus on the walking hand in hand. Like, I have a dream that one day black children and white children walk hand in hand. So I immediately connected with that, and I rhymed, just a little more love, just a little more peace is all it takes to live the dream, to walk hand in hand. We got to understand, and one day soon we'll live in harmony. Okay, so that song.
Alrighty then.
So I finished the song. So here's the thing. With the track, it was called Top Lining, which I didn't know it was. I'd written 3 different melodies just from listening to, and I picked that. And then it was on the spot, writing the lyrics and rhyming them and singing them. And I finished it all in one take, and they were done. They were cheering in the studio. And I was like, what? Really? You really don't want me to re-sing it? No, it's perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect. You don't want me to add a verse or a bridge? No, it's perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect. So I go home to Nashville, not knowing what's going to happen. A few months later, David calls me, Chris, we have the #1 song in France. So it was like,
oh, wow.
It happened.
Everything happens fast for you.
It was so slow.
Like it, right?
It seems like things
very slow.
It was very slow.
It was very slow. It was agony. It was torture. But no, that moment I was on the phone. I was just like shocked. I'm like, I didn't know whether to cheer or whether to say, well, but all the things are playing on in my head. I'm like, I'm supposed to be a gospel artist, but here's it happening in dance music in France. It's the number one song in the country. And I'm like, wow, to process all of that in that call was one thing. And then when the check came, because I had my own publishing, I had held on to my publishing, I got hired an administrator, and that check that I saw
changed your perspective, didn't it?
Was like, okay, we're doing this.
So
this is what we got.
Here's the deal. You're saying so many doggone nuggets. I keep trying to find little spaces to
Fine,
dive
I'm
to
done.
catch you.
Go for it.
No, not that I want you to be done, but you're hitting some things that are done. So as a publisher, I can't just gloss over the importance that you saw in taking care of your publishing. You hadn't signed it away to somebody. I just want to make sure people understand that. Like, can we get a hint on what that check looked like?
Oh, it was definitely probably five or six figures. I can't remember. It's been so long, but it was life changing. It was like, okay, this was worth it. All the trips, all the singing, all the heartaches, all the headaches, all the misunderstandings and confusion, and I mean, the embracing as freedom, that was really the key. Was I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to just receive whatever's supposed to come to me. And so along the way, I hired a really great business manager, Martin Albion Associates, back in those days. When the money started coming in, they were able to kind of manage the tax flow and everything. I found some really incredible people with publishing that I could go to them and say, hey, I've got this deal coming on. What should I do? And they referred me to some really great publishing administrators. So my first deal were administration deals. I had my own publishing and set everything up. And I was trying to make sure not to offend my French collaborators, but I knew that because I was American and because everything was in English and everything their world was in French, I had to really create, to establish some boundaries, but didn't really know what I was doing or how I was doing it. So thankfully, my publishing administrator and my business managers were there to help me because I was learning how to do it all. I had no idea what I was doing.
I'm just proud that someone who looks like me prioritized taking care of their money, because unfortunately that's not the norm. We make the money, then we just blow it. But you're like, look, I mean, just the fact that you said taxes and that I knew I had to have someone who knew what they were doing taking care of my taxes, like that's a big deal.
Yeah. I remember hearing, MTV was huge and all the backstories of artists. I remember watching those stories and seeing the catastrophes that happened with artists that made it big and had lots of money. And I was like, okay, that's not going to be me.
No.
I don't know how, but I know I'm going to figure out that piece. So, it was really a conscious effort.
I like to follow some of the emotional stuff on it because the way you tell the story, I say everything happens for you fast because there's some things that I'm sure you left out of the story, some days, some weeks, some months, some years, some crying, not thinking.
It was like I gave the offering, and then someone gave me a house.
The next day it was that.
You forgot about the job offer and then
exactly. Hindsight being 2020, though, it's easy to say this is what was supposed to happen, or whatever's on. Right. But in the moment, did you feel like, all right, this didn't work? I heard you say it. I'm going to follow it however. But was it really a visceral feeling of just reckless abandon? Just whatever comes up, I'm going to follow whatever
absolutely
path.
Not. It hurt deeply. It deeply hurt. I remember talking to the record people that were telling me you've been dropped. I was like, but why? We're just getting momentum. The songs are playing on the radio. I'm on tour everywhere. Why is that not enough? Why am I not enough?
Right.
So then that was really what came up first. I went to Jackie Patillo and she said, Chris, do you realize I've lost my job? So she was asked to leave and move on. And so she had to figure it out. So
you're trying to tell me that the label, they didn't care about you personally? They weren't your best friend? Is that what I mean? That doesn't seem right. I mean, if they signed you, they must have cared about
a vested interest in your well-being, right?
No.
Not at all.
No, they don't. They might have. But, the thing about the music industry, the music business, it is music, but it's also a business.
Boom. Yeah.
So I really learned the hard way that that part is really real. It's really true.
And it hits you to your core where you're literally doubting yourself.
Oh, I mean, I'm taking it mega personally.
I heard what you said. You was like, and I didn't take it lightly. You said, why am I not enough?
Right.
And that hits on so many freaking levels, because now you're questioning that outside of music. You're like, wow, I'm not good enough.
Well, because I've been trying to get on that gospel track and stay on it. And so, boom, first no. Boom, second no. I'm like, what? I'm trying to do this that way. What's wrong? Right. Why is it not? So at that moment, I had to realize there's a bigger way of looking at things. Yeah, I mean, I look at a lot of the artists that I worshipped and studied for years. Many of them started in gospel, but transitioned into mainstream. And I think to myself, Is God okay with that? I think God's okay with that. I think if you're in your heart pure and genuine and you're passionate about your truth and the truth, the packaging.
Stop looking at me.
Is
Chris is on my side with this. Chris, this is some inside stuff between us. You're right. Continue what you're saying. Okay. He's internally disagreeing. I'm right there with you. Keep going. Keep going.
I'm not.
Well, this is what works for me. It doesn't work for everybody.
This is what we agree.
Facts. There you go.
It's where I have come to. It's what I have struggled with, and this is where I've landed. Yeah. But
you forget. I know Chris. I know little Chris. I know. So I'm not disagreeing. I know all the backstories.
Again, meeting you today, fan of the work, seen from afar, got real hype when I heard you coming in, that kind of deal. I want to compare you to another writer that's different vein because the massive pop hit. It reminds me of what Jonte Austin did because he was an artist too.
Oh,
and kind of getting pushed from being in the forefront, and then that opportunity to write for everybody else, and then getting Sweet Lady with Tyrese, and then now has probably the greatest R&B song ever written in the history of everywhere. Y'all are a rare species that can pull yourself together because I think I've heard him tell a story the same thing where emotionally it was rocking because that's what he wanted. But certain things that we have collectively in the industry would not have happened had the two of you been Michael Jackson. Had y'all not been in the background and been able to produce and write these songs that we now have.
Very true. It's very important to really embrace your journey, and that's another struggle for me because, again, me thinking, I want to be Michael Jackson, I want to be Prince, I want to follow that path and follow that trajectory. I mean, my mind thinking, okay, I'm doing all the things that he did. I'm looking at the playbook, I'm looking at the backstory, and I'm saying, okay, I'm at this age, and when Prince was this age, when Michael Jackson was this age, this was happening, and I can feel myself slipping, but at that moment I have to say, okay, I have to set MJ aside, I got to set Prince aside and say, okay, this is what's true and what's happening in my world. How can I make the most of that thing, that piece?
If I was there back in the day, knowing what I know now, I would have asked you. I would have told you. We have Mike, we have a Prince, we don't have a Chris. Do Chris? We need a Chris. And then, what was it about Michael and Prince where you want to be like, I want to be Michael Jackson? Like, what is it about Michael Jackson? I mean, there's the obvious answer you think, but I don't want to assume.
I mean, he named a bunch of other names too. Now, it wasn't just Mike and Prince.
Well, it did. So, what is it about these people that you can not just I want to be like? You
was
like,
it the fame? Was it
that's
the?
What I'm saying. It's like, what was it?
It was all those things. It was the fame, definitely. It was the impact that you can have as an artist over a broad audience. And how that impact in the form of ticket sales, record sales, radio airplay, that translating into dollars changes your life. I mean, you have freedom, you have financial freedom, you have creative freedom, you have control, you have a life that you can begin to create generational wealth. You have power. You have a kind of power that you can walk into any world, into any realm, and be respected and loved and adored and appreciated for your work. I think it was all of those things that I saw and believed that if I did what they did, I would get what they got.
Wait a minute. Now, one of my first questions, I said, this came out of Johnny's mouth, that you've always come off and just seemed like one of the most humble, successful people. And now I'm hearing all this vanity.
Hey, and I'm going to admit that I forgot your coffee.
Oh, it's okay.
And I'm glad you didn't bring it up. But wait, no, I've always claimed it as class. I always said Chris is such a class act. But I hit him. I said, "Would you like coffee, water, or fruit or something?" All of that sounds great. I was like, "That's Chris."
He got the fruit. No, the fruit's over there, Chris. We got you.
Good, you said, I saw what they did and what they had or what that got them, right? But I wanna focus on that phrase, I saw what they did, because you saw what they became. I think if people truly had a chance to see what these people did to become who they are, your mind might change in some areas. What do you think about that?
What they did, you mean in terms of the work that goes behind?
Right, behind, what the stuff we don't see, the struggles, the doubts, the I'm not enough. I'm sure they've had those thoughts.
I know what 300 shows a year feels like touring.
Yes, but I guess, let me go backwards, because the very first concert tour that I did, that tour was hard. And then all the other tours afterward were easy.
Sure.
So
because they weren't 300 days.
They weren't 300 days, but
because you had done it.
I earned a different position. I think
Right.
what also happens over time is once you acquire some of those goals, those milestones, your ability to get what they have becomes easier, and it's going to only be in your own form. I mean, I will never be Michael Jackson. I look at the story of Michael Jackson and the family and the whole dynamic, and Berry Gordy and the mainstream label and all that stuff. That was not my story.
Right.
I can only dream of replicating. And in terms of his performance, I think when I think of Michael Jackson, I think of hearing him on the radio all the time. That part I wanted. I do imagine the touring and the stage and all that. It's really intense. It's really huge. I've gone to some shows. I've never been to a Michael Jackson show, but I've seen Prince. I've seen a lot of the major artists, and it is really intimidating. I think you have to be wired in your mind and your body to kind of dream of doing that. And I think I'm that guy. I think I'm wired that way. So much so that whatever rehearsals, whatever it would take, I believe to a certain point that I'm capable of doing that. A lot of that has changed now. Now that I'm married, I have a daughter. I don't really have that much of that kind of ambition because I really love being at home with my family and the time it takes to be on tour and I listen to stories of artists on all genres who have taken to the road, they've been on the road and don't know their children.
Yeah.
So the trade-off has been, okay, well, I didn't get everything that Michael Jackson and Prince got, but I did get close to it. And I think that's a part of what I'm trying to evolve into my coaching is that it's good to have a goal, it's good to have an admiration, good to have a light that you're following, but it's also important to be realistic in a sense. And that's not to say your dreams can't come true, because they do, but when we live in a realistic universe, times have changed, systems have changed, businesses have changed. I mean, the difference between physical product sales versus streaming has changed, and that was a big adjustment for me. So with all those things that change, sometimes your huge dream, it's in your best interest to adapt it and to change it and, achieve the things you can achieve and the things that are out of your control, let those things go. But in terms of vanity, I think part of it comes from really me loving myself. And I think sometimes that can be confused or misconstrued as vanity, because I think in order to do what Michael Jackson and Prince and all these people have done, you have to have a really strong sense of yourself. You have to really have a strong love of yourself. And that in some circles may come across as vanity or arrogance, but I think without it, there's no way you can really survive. You
I agree 100%.
Really have a thick skin.
I was partially joking when I threw that out there. It set itself up because of the way I said that first statement. Before we get into you sharing everything that you've done with this next generation and coaching and consulting, I've toured, and just like you just said, touring can be tough. I got married in 2010, and 4 months later went on a 3-month tour. So I was away from my new wife in a foreign country, 13 hours apart for an extended period of time. And it was tough for emotionally, physically, psychologically, just because the work itself, like touring, if you've never done it, what goes in, whether you're stagehand, whether you're mix engineer, whether you're the artist, the physical and mental fortitude that's required to get through a tour is unreal until you experience it. And I don't ever want to be gone from home that long again. So that set up to ask this. That was a sacrifice I made because I was still following a dream of mine. And that's one of those things that comes. Like it's with the business. If you want that, there's sacrifices that come with it. We know Michael's sacrifices. We know Prince's sacrifices. All of these even David Guetta has some sacrifices. Everyone has sacrificed something. We've heard what happened with the label, but that wasn't a sacrifice. That happened to you. Something you had to give up to make this path that you got to follow and are still following. What was that? I mean, you have the family and a daughter now, but
Good question. So up until 2014, I was just a single man. I lived on my own, and I knew that was what was going to be best for me. I dreamed of having a family, but I felt like I wanted to build my fortune first, and then at some point slow down a little bit and just kind of build my legacy. And it kind of happened almost simultaneously, but almost accidentally. But yeah, that was a definite trade-off, and it was in many ways worth it. But there's a lot of loneliness. There's a lot of, that feeling of, looking at other people that have settled down. I'm like, where's mine? when am I going to get mine? And, you know, when is my time? You know, and do I have, when I choose that, is it possible to have this or am I choosing this? Am I letting go of? And at that in a sense is what happened with my family building. It's almost like the music business went pew and the family building went pew, and I'm like, whoa, I need that to keep this going. So, but it's, you know, at that point you just have to accept and decide what's worth it. And
how do you feel about the whole have your cake and eat it too thing? Because I have the conversation a lot with people when I tell them you can't have it all. You can't do both. My wife still asks me, why aren't you still writing and producing? And I'm just like, you're sitting right here. Do you want me to not make money for 6 months? Like that's a real thing. We can have that. Or you can live in Buckhead. Like which one do you want?
This is something I struggle with. I don't know. It's something I'm really working through, you know, in terms of mindset, because mindset is a whole place that I think I've lived all these years, and I'm really trying to crystallize it and package it in a sense. I'm convinced that you can have your cake and eat it too, but there is a cost. There's a price that comes with it. I think there are times when you can have your cake and eat it too, and there are times when you're just going to have your cake. And there are times when you're just going to be eating it, but not having it. So it's being open to all of those things, because I think there are people that have had their cake and eat it too, and I look at some of those people and look at what they did to get there, and I'm thinking, that wasn't just or fair, but they got their cake and they ate it too. So I think there's
So follow me on this.
so many layers to it.
See if it makes sense to you.
Okay.
Because it makes sense in my brain, but we know what that
So
means.
it's not gonna make sense to this whole 2/3 of the table.
The reason why I believe you can have your cake and eat it too, because I get the same pressure from Tosh.
Okay.
Why don't you write anymore?
You can't have your cake and eat it too?
I believe you can.
You can, okay.
When we say that, we picture ourselves eating the cake, just sitting there eating the cake. The reason why I feel you can have your cake and eat it too is you can always nibble on the cake.
Oh, okay.
So what I mean by that is you do what you need to do, and really it comes down to prioritization. You do what you need to do to make a living for your family. What I'm learning from our wives is that I know you have this talent. I at least just want to see you doing the talent. It doesn't have to pay our bills right now.
Okay.
It doesn't have to blah, blah, but right now your talent is doing nothing. And I'm a fan of that talent in you. So just when you're playing the video games, whatever, just write a song. We don't have to put it out. They want to see us utilize that talent, because we also know in music too, crap can happen that we had no intention of happening. Sure. And I used to say the same thing to you. I was like, you think I can just sit there and write a song and just get placed and blah, 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 blah? It don't work that way. And then I got to be in a creative mindset. I can't be in a creative mindset because you worry about the money that's coming in. Who can write like that? And
The pressure.
And we're just going back and forth, and then realize, because one thing she told someone, she goes, someone's a really great songwriter. It's just, you know, and it just hit me just then. I was like, it's nice to have a wife who's a fan, and she genuinely is. And I was
she'll
like,
tell you.
She just, she will.
She'll let you
I was
know.
like, she just wants me to write.
Yeah.
She just wants me to freaking write because I can write. And the pressure left. I was like, why don't I just write? And remember how I tell people all the time, when you do a lot of things, whichever one breaks through, you don't have to give up the other. It just becomes a passion.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's what, to me, having your cake and eating it too. You don't have to sit there and eat the cake in one sitting. Just take a nibble today, take a nibble tomorrow. You have your cake, and you're still eating it.
I like that. I like that philosophy.
Yeah.
I do.
I struggle with it for the simple fact that I get addicted to the cake. The reason why I stopped producing and I kind of phased
We're
out
talking
of doing-
about like the pastry cake, not
this guy.
just got to,
This
with Johnny, you got to
guy.
keep him on the path. You got to keep him focused.
Well, let's not detour. Let's get back on the track.
We're focused.
what I struggle with is that when I would lock in, we'd been just like any other writer or producer. When I was on a production team, we'd be in the studio 28 hours a day, and it'd be weeks at a time where my wife would have to come to the studio to see me, or I'd stop home, shower, change clothes, come back to the studio. That was it. We were locked in. When I got to a point where I realized she needed my time, not that I don't want to say it like that, I enjoyed giving her my time. The amount of energy that it takes to do the music the way I was doing it, I couldn't do both.
But back then, were you doing the music for a purpose?
Yeah.
You were doing it to turn it into write, to work.
Well, I mean, it was work, because we were doing, like I said, we were doing a bunch of commercial stuff. But at the same time, it was the passion at the same. I lucked up.
Right.
I was able to get paid for doing what I love to do. But it required a lot of output to make it happen.
That's true.
So when I couldn't do that, when I could only touch my keyboard once a week, or I can only touch my violin once every couple weeks because I've got to work and I've got to date stuff, and those mailbox money checks are slowing down. The addiction started to eat at me because I couldn't give it everything, so I had to stop.
And we're gonna get to your business now.
Yes.
But to me, just the fact that you're still equating that the check stopped. You're still,
Listen, we're not going to try to fix Johnny.
No, we're not.
Okay?
We're not.
gonna
What
do
I'm
that.
going to say was, I'm a living proof, though, how things can happen. Because I think you know too. So I do like massage therapy on the side.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
It's just a passion of mine. I enjoy it. I personally feel I get more of it than the client does. They always clown me on it. You're like, you ain't never gonna be rubbing on my. It's like you just trying to rub on naked women.
It's just because we know Stone. Chris.
Whatever. Obviously, you don't. So anyway, so I do it whenever it just pops up. Janelle or Josh's sister or friends like, oh, can I get a massage? And I just do it like that. And then they're like, wow, you're really good. And then one day Janelle paid me. I was like, this is nice. And then I have this lady in Duluth now who pays me. And like just last 2 weeks ago, like it's the most I've ever made in a week. I made $570.
Wow.
From only 3 sessions.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. But to my point, I never saw it as, all right, something I do well. I just did it for me, right? When I write, like I'll just do it for me. If you ever touch that keyboard, just do it for you.
Chris, I want to get to you. I gotta debunk what he just
he
said.
has to always
I have
debunk.
to because he always leads.
But I'm not trying to fix you.
He leads with a statement that's just wrong. He said that I was equating it to the money, and I'm not.
Okay.
I am addicted to creating music.
There it is. Okay.
I used to practice my violin 6 hours a day by myself when I could. I can't do that.
You
now,
don't just sell it. You're also a user.
No, it's just that's my peace
I feel
place.
you. I got you.
And if I only have 20 minutes and then I have to put it down and rush to go to Hopkido,
That's frustrating.
or date,
Yeah.
I cannot
I got you.
just give myself 20 minutes of what I've been passionate about since I was 6.
That makes sense.
So that's truly what it is.
That makes sense.
Now back
That
to you.
makes
I just
sense.
had to
Okay.
clear. I'm sorry.
No, I
So-
get it. Everybody has different layers. It's a cake. There's different layers.
And you just nibble
It's
at the
really
cake. So people like us, we want to find a way to do it. The beautiful thing you said several times in your story is like, I learned this. I figured this out. I studied this, right? We have people who just won't do that, but they need people who will show them.
Yes,
I'm a
it's
music
true.
coach myself, but you have something amazing that you're starting.
Yes. I think one of the things I discovered about myself was that I'm a do-it-with-you person. I'm not a do-it-yourself person. Some areas I am a DIY guy. But in some areas, I got here and I was very successful because I had a lot of people doing it with me.
Right.
And so I think one of the things that I think is interesting about now is that you can do a lot of things yourself. As an artist, as a producer, as a songwriter, as a creative, there's so much you can do yourself that you couldn't do before.
Right.
And that has changed the whole structure of everything: music, profit making, the way people listen to music. And then, of course, the pandemic did a lot of things for that too, because when you couldn't go out and perform, we had to create ways of seeing each other. And so that's yet another change. So what I learned for myself was that not being able to perform for those 2 years was like my hands being tied behind my back. And that was, at that particular moment in my history, was my major source of income because of streaming really taking the forefront and physical product not. It really meant, okay, if you're an artist and you're a creative, you got to figure out some other way to do it.
Yeah.
What
It hurt me too, as your DJ.
Well, of course it did. It hurt you.
No, I really did. He took me to Russia with him.
And then the war really was another thing. It was just like, oh my God, Ukraine and Russia, two of
right.
my favorite places to
And
play.
they love. Can I just say they love him in Russia? I'm not even kidding. I just pressed the button, and Chris comes out. Hey, tell me what the phone to do.
I'm Michael Jackson in Russia.
They were just like, I mean, they went nuts. I was sitting there like, yeah. I was like, when's your next trip? Chris, when's your next trip?
So glad I had a witness, because in my mind I'm seeing this for like years. Like this is a 20 since 2000 to 2022. That's how long this has been going on. To have someone from America, from Atlanta, to see this, it was just like.
Please make sure I bring that up, because I want to bring over your international fame,
Yeah.
and I want you to tell us the difference after you tell your story.
Yes.
The difference between international and but I do want people to know how crazy they are over there. And to
Absolutely.
me, it was because of the record and music. It was big. But hearing this dude live, though, be like, tell me what I'm gonna do. And it just, like, I know the guy. I already know what he sounds like. I almost forgot to hit play because I was like,
Like you're being touched.
he's like, job gone. Job gone. Stone, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do, Stone? Stone, what you gonna do? So go ahead.
But yeah, so fast forward to now. So yeah, I accomplished a lot because of the way things were, 10 years ago. What I discovered was that even me as an artist, to really continue to maybe get a couple gigs or to really connect with the audience, I have to adapt and learn some new skills. And in my searching for building my coaching, I realized that a lot of artists and everybody, you have access to all of these things online. But sometimes you just need someone to just kind of guide you through it, to coach you through it, to lead you through to the promised land. And I'm excited about the course that I'm building because I think it's going to help a lot of artists connect the dots. It's going to help them get some of the things that they have access to already, but to put it in perspective. And I'm just going to be guiding them and nudging them. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep moving this. You know what? You may not have thought of this, but here's an idea that popped into my head because of my experience.
Right.
Maybe this will be a benefit to you. Let's try this for a while. And then add that to, it's very trial and error. I mean, depending on your dynamic, if you're a DIY person, God bless you, go for it. But if you're a do it with you person and you can benefit from an independent artist who didn't realize he was independent, but who's been passionate about mainstream music and has experienced the heat and the fire and the phenomenon that is mainstream music, and you want to take your business from where you are now somewhere in between, because I tell you what, everybody doesn't have to be a mainstream artist.
Right.
You don't have to achieve mainstream success in order to have success.
Facts.
You can be an independent artist, you can be a singer, and just doing a few things more, a few things differently, a few things more consistently, you can expand your income and build a great life for yourself. And that's really what I'm offering.
Preach.
So is it safe to say that this is a practice? Because I like how you
Absolutely.
okay. So you're practicing on people.
I am practicing on people.
And I like that because, as you said, the industry has changed a lot. I mean, just within the last 2 years, I think it's been an exponential shift than just what it was in 2019. But still having the experiences from the good old days.
Yes.
And then as it became the digital age, when we moved into the popcorn microwave type of stuff, having that vision is important to have with guidance. Now, with that, where do you see it evolving to next? What do you see yourself being able to help this microwave popcorn generation of artists that want to record a song a night and put it out every other day? How can you help them understand what it could be? Because me and Stone were having a conversation about, I feel like that's actually it's a detriment to the industry, because artists are just doing something, they're not sitting with the art, they're not actually allowing it to live and breathe, they're just doing it and throwing their baby out there to the wolves.
Okay, so my course isn't for everybody.
Okay.
And so it really is a matter of, if you are serious about achieving a particular income dynamic, then come to me. If you are okay with just making music in your closet, go for it. Have fun. There's a lot of people that's all they want, and I totally celebrate that. But if you're serious about really growing your business and expanding on the music business aspect of it, those are my avatar clients.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of what people say mediocre music that's being made, and I think it's perfect because you can get your keyboard from Amazon, you can get your digital workstation from whatever, get your microphone, you can do it all, you can film yourself and record yourself and build your own YouTube channel, you can do it all yourself, and if that's where you want to go, God bless you, go for it.
Yeah.
But if you want more than that, if you want to really reach a broad audience, I know what it feels like to be on the stage at Royal Albert Hall. I know what that feels like. I've seen it. I've seen the people out there, David on the deck, me, and if that's what you want to accomplish, I'm here to help you get close to that.
And there's a lot of people in this generation, I don't like using that phrase, this generation, but who actually don't even quite understand how to appreciate that because of the culture they grow up in. And like who we were talking about with too, and I go over this a lot in my business coaching, my music business coaching, is at the end of the day, we do live in a microwave society, right? But it's the world around businesses now learning how to do business in that microwave environment. So Yeah, the song itself may be mediocre, but it's like when you and Leslie and I were talking, like the music nowadays, that's not the product. You're the product. So they need to see the consistency. And if you know how to use a lot of these tools correctly, yeah, that song might be mediocre, but there may be a 10, 20-second lick in there that's kind of dope. And you put that now to Reels and to TikTok videos and stuff. And now all of a sudden so I miss the days when it was just going in there and cultivating and crafting a piece of art. And that still is important. If you want the kind of longevity, right, and the legacy and the size of what you're talking about, Chris is your man. You know what I mean? But a lot of them are just like, well, I just kind of want to do this right now and build up to that. And it's legit because that's just what it is right now. Like that's actually a legitimate way to do it. But to your point, are you hurting yourself a little bit too? Because that kind of sort of mediocrity is also kind of what people kind of know you for, you know. So now you got to find a way to slap them in the face with a Chris type of song or music or something.
I think it's one of the things that it's if you don't know what you don't know, you know. And I don't know if I even answered your question. What do I feel about the trend in music? Can we change it? Is it shiftable? I think people are always going to be hungry for a great performance. They're going to always want to be moved by an artist or a song that really touches them, that really connects to them. I live downtown Atlanta, and I drive by the Tabernacle, and I see people lined up to go hear and experience music. Right. So there's always going to be that space for people, and I think it's awesome that people have access to make music any way they want. I just love participating in the space where people want that refined, polished, beautiful, impacting experience. I mean, I support that. It's what I believe in. That's how I got here.
We talked about you indirectly the other day too, because the reason why a lot of you need to not dismiss what someone like a Chris Willis is offering is because of the AI world that we live in, right? AI will never emulate the human component. And you have masters of the human component teaching you how to keep the human component involved. And that's irreplaceable. You know what I mean? So there is a nice niche, I feel an uncommon niche that you have in your coaching program that I think people should take advantage of.
Well, thank you. It's really exciting. It's still being built, and I'm really thrilled to see what artists I'm going to help. I mean, I'm already getting calls. I have one call that I received yesterday of an artist. Once I described to her what I was doing, she's like, oh my God, this is exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm really excited to see about a way, because yes, there's so much going on with the computer and AI and algorithms and Spotify and all the tricks and everything, but all those things I think are designed to imitate what human beings are doing. So as long as computers are trying to imitate what we're doing, it just means that we still need that thing, that itch scratched. So I'm not worried. I'm enthusiastic and excited, and
I'm touched by you saying you're excited and you're looking forward to what artists you're going to help, because that shows that there's still a form of creativity in the science that you're building, because what you've done can be put into a science. But I want to take that science back to the stage, and and how you know those emotions that you feel when you were performing overseas and that response you get, and break down just the variance in consumption of how those responses are different from continent to continent. Because I feel like here in America, obviously our music has taken the point and it's been pushed into the forefront, and it's kind of been guiding music in the world for a while. K-pop had its movement where people started kind of emulating what was happening in K-pop and J-pop, but music here, everybody wanted to create a Jackson 5. Everybody wanted a Pink. Everybody wanted a TLC around the world. How is it different internationally from how they react and respond to what you create than what you get here at home?
And segue on the music business part, because that was my question.
Okay.
Very good question. So the funny thing about my experience in Europe and abroad has been, I think a lot of people are listening from a English as a second language perspective. And the beauty of that is that they only know a few words. They really catch the vibe. It's really about, they look at the singer, and if you're feeling it, they're grasping it. They may not know everything you're saying, but then again, because electronic dance music is mainstream music, it's playing on the mainstream radio station. Here in America, you have a very selective marketplace where dance music is playing, and I'm just speaking to dance music in particular. Music in general, I think my experiences here performing in America have been very similar to my experiences in Europe, depending on the venue. When I've gone to Vegas and people know they're tuned in to the DJ and all that, it's awesome. When I go to Miami, it's awesome. When I go to Chicago, it's awesome. When I've gone to New York and played in New York in the clubs, that's been awesome. I haven't really had very much experience in Atlanta playing, but that doesn't mean anything. It just means that Atlanta isn't considered a major market. But the times when David did come and I was on the stage with him, there was incredible support. So I think what I would love to see in America would be dance music radio stations because I think that would replicate and emulate. But, the music in America is music in America. It is what it is right now. And it's a beautiful thing. But yeah, my experience in Europe and especially Brazil, I think of all the places I've been, my experience in Brazil was probably the most profound because I think I look like the people in the audience. I think there's an even deeper connection when it comes to music. And the same as with sport. I mean, if you think about football and soccer in Argentina and the South American countries, it's a ticket out. It's a way out. So there's a different kind of captivated emotion. Me being a man of color in Europe, I'm not sure. I've had lots of conversations with what is it about me that is interesting. I think because the world is so unified in what we can see on the television and movies, I think that also plays into I'm this brown guy in Russia and people are really they're tuned into what's happening in America. So when I see someone from America, I think that adds to it. And then when I'm on stage, I'm really giving it. I'm not just kind of standing there singing. Right. I'm working it. I'm inviting them in. It's an experience. It's almost like I become this gospel preacher. I am I'm channeling that whole kind of, this is the church and I'm the preacher and this is my song, is the sermon. I think that really is a connection, of course, because of the radio. The songs are playing on the radio and people already know the music. They come there, they know they're going to hear the song. That connection is also intense in Europe because it's playing there. So,
and as big as they were over there, he was still humble because when he was done, there were people coming up to me asking for my autograph, and I was like, and I kept trying to point them to Chris. I said, he's right over there. He's like, no, over there, they love the DJ. Go eat it up or something like that. Absolutely. He pushed me back out. I'm like, okay, hey.
Because that's the thing in Europe too. They love the artist, but they also love the DJ, and that's something I really observed just in my early years touring with David, because I wasn't touring on my own. I was touring with him. I was there, but I only came out for one song, but he was playing from midnight till 4 a.m. And they are in it, up there, in front of him, paying attention. I'm like, okay, I see what's happening. I totally respect the DJ. I am the success that I am because of my partnership with David, and that's one of the parts that I'll be adding to my course is partnerships. You can be a great solo artist, but if you can partner with an artist that has a bigger following or close to your following, you've doubled your money, so to speak. You've doubled your impact. So, it's nice when you're a solo artist and you have a massive following on your own. But in today's world, you can connect worlds. I think that's the other thing. It's me being American and David being French. That was another thing that really kind of expanded the intensity of the world, of the work. So I hope I answered your question.
Absolutely.
No, you did. It's funny you said that because and this is the last thing I'm going to say is I was talking to our interns the other day when we talking about partnerships. I was like, Spotify, they have this whole algorithm when you have featured artists and stuff like that, and they have different types of featured artists. But I was like, if some of y'all had your album and Jay-Z agreed to feature on it, you'd be like, yes, I'm about to tap into all that. And you would list it on Spotify as, I'm going to just use one of my guys named B-Dub, right? Say B-Dub featuring Jay-Z. And I'm like, that's not going to work.
No.
I said, one, you're going to drop because they're going to look at who the primary artist is. So I said, you want them to be like Jay-Z featuring B-Dub. It says, it's not going to feed your ego, but it's going to give you the numbers that you were looking for.
Absolutely.
So once you have those partnerships, you need to find the smart way to use it. That was my little.
Yes, you had a business question.
That was it. You kind of touched it on just how the whole.
See, the way I ask my questions, I generally guide the guests into weaving in the responses that Stone would like.
He talks to you like a radio host. I talk to you like a friend. So you need to know which one you're in the mood for.
I'm one of those colloquial radio hosts that's just very homey. That's all it is. That's it. Speaking of homey, your wife and your daughter.
Yeah.
Let's talk about my heart.
When we talk about that coming down from the industry and then the family life, obviously I can imagine that, what you described about, no, I need that to take care of this. But was it one of those welcome transitions? It's like, I've done so much. My legacy is there. It's time to do this. Or was it almost a stubborn type of acceptance of, I got to do this love thing now, or I'm not going to get to do this love thing? Like, which was it?
Very good question. So strangely enough, once I got married, that was a wake-up call, because at that particular moment, I was at a position with my management where the relationship was really toxic. So it was really strange how I'm getting married and I'm losing one of the most incredible relationships in my life simultaneously, simply because it was soul destroying. I had two managers and they're beautiful. I love them both. And Gary Salzman was one and Bill Coleman was the other. And Gary Salzman succumbed to COVID. So, and this was before, but at that time they were working together with me, and that can be a benefit. And then at times it can be not so good. So that was probably the first thing that was just like, oh wow, I was hoping to kind of keep that relationship going as I'm getting married, because that part was critical to keeping gigs going and keeping relationships with labels and bringing in collaborations. So that once that went away, I was like, okay, I'm really becoming this family man. And then I sold a large chunk of my publishing to a publisher, just because I wanted to kind of have some financial support, with my wife. So, and then that relationship after a year didn't really go the way I wanted. So here I got this wife, and I got two relationships that are falling apart in my business. So it was kind of like I made the choice to get married, and I thought by making that choice, everything else was going to stay intact and exponentially increase. For some reason, it just kind of went in reverse. And then on top of that, I decided, okay, we're going to have a baby now, and we're going to go through IVF. And that's going to cost.
Oh, you were crazy.
Oh, see, you have no idea.
Okay.
So, and then we were the kind.
So worth it.
We were the kind thinking, oh, we're going to do that first transfer. It's going to come out. We're going to be good. Nope. Second transfer.
Nope.
Third transfer.
Whoa.
Nope. Fourth transfer.
Whoa.
No, they went for it.
Fifth transfer. So, to your question, in my mind, it was.
I'm regretting asking the question.
Don't regret, because the beautiful thing about it all was, by the time Avalon got here, I was like, okay,
It's a beautiful name, by the way.
Beautiful
Avalon,
girl.
yeah. Jake,
You already know I'm in sort of picture.
By the time Avalon got here, I was just like, okay, you know what? It was worth every penny to spend every dime I had to see that baby come to life, and that Jake came out of it completely intact, because my wife carried the baby. And the hospital care was awesome. Just everything we spent, everything we did, it was great. Even though the business fell apart, this beautiful child was just like, you know what? It was worth it. I would do it all over again. I'd like to do it slightly differently, but I would do it all over again. But it wasn't like, oh, now I got a wife. And I was like, you know what? So what?
And big shout out to Jake, because she was built for Chris and for this.
Yeah.
And that's a whole lifelong love story that I don't want to impose that I can share. But they were supposed to be. They were supposed to be.
I asked you a question about your career and what you may have sacrificed to make that happen, and I'm discovering that, in a sense, you almost sacrificed the career for your family. In a sense,
yes, in a sense. And then once COVID happened, I was just like, okay, this is really like, come on, what y'all doing up there? Why is it happening?
Gabriel, what are you doing? Get off the flute.
But I mean, we were together, and I was just like, you know what? I wanted to be home. I wanted to see the baby come to life. I wanted to be able to change diapers, and be careful what you ask for, because I got it. I got all of that. To be able to do those midnight feedings and to be there for the delivery. I remember holding her underneath that heat lamp while the nurse was telling me, okay, now this is what's happening and this is what we're going to do, and just watching her and seeing that beautiful life. And, the dream of having a family is very similar to the dream of having your career. That moment when you hear that song on the radio, or that moment when you step out on that stage.
I'm glad you're doing this.
It's the same thing with the baby. It was just like, this was like, I did all of that so that this could happen.
I couldn't have asked for a better setup.
And I on purpose wasn't going to go, I'm like, here's a clip.
Here's a clip. Yeah. You couldn't have set this up better for me. So now you have to do it. We're going to put them on the scales and weigh them. Baby being born, that first song coming out and getting that check and getting that validation, where do they set?
What's your answer? Just you're thinking about it too long, Chris.
No,
baby,
think about it as long as you need to, because I know.
They don't have the same weight, but they're both very heavy. Okay. So in a scale, weighs more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the baby weighs more.
Okay.
And the money was a heavyweight, but it was the money.
Not so much the money, the validation of your career.
The validation of my career.
Yeah.
It was almost like they kind of support each other. That supported my baby, because I don't know if I would have had the same kind of feeling without that part.
Okay.
I think it was the sacrifice of just living my life and serving the public and serving the music and serving David and serving the DJ world and the EDM culture and touring and seeing the world. Mm-hmm. All that stuff, in a sense, prepared me financially as well as emotionally. I mean, I had done it all. I've seen it. I've seen the world, and now I can take a breath and say, this is the world that you've been born into, and this is the man that's here, that's going to be here for you, as opposed to trying to do that at the same time and not being able to give and devote the time. I mean,
because they're not really being weighed at the same time. Like this had its time,
right?
Yeah. Now this has its time.
I wouldn't say,
which is why I
wouldn't
said,
say equal weight,
right.
but they're very, very similar. But this weight, wow,
it was a good question, because both of them were very Chris
It's definitely not an apples to apples. It's a total apple to orange thing.
Absolutely right.
But the way you set it up and the way you talked about them both, and them both being so transcendental, they both carry a certain weight with them.
Yes.
And I know some writers that their kids don't mean that much to them. They'll say there's a certain song, or when they got this certain plaque, that was the
you can
moment.
tell how they refer to them, like crumb snatchers, little humans.
Mm-hmm. He's talking about me.
My baby is everything, and we have one more embryo on ice. So I'm like, okay. I really would love to, and that's the thing. It's like that's how I know that the child.
So you crazy. You want to do it again?
Really cuckoo. Cuckoo. Do it right here. I know. Because this hit is so hard.
Sense
It's not
into
gonna feel it.
Hey, Pootie Tang.
The reason why I asked that, from my perspective, so my wife and I were best friends before we got together. We officially got together at 18. I was already in the industry. I was touring, I was producing, I started doing stuff at about 14, 15. I had the Superman mentality. I could do it all. I could become Timberland and have a relationship, not taking into account what she wanted. And then when she started telling me the stuff she wanted that I was now responsible for providing, I'm like, ugh. My stuff might not be able to get the energy it needs, because my stuff has deferred money. Her stuff needs right now money.
Yes.
And so I don't regret any of it. We love our son to death. I love my relationship with my wife. However, for me, there will always be a bit of a, what if I would have put this off for 10 years and really went harder with music through my early adult years?
Yeah.
And where would that have been in my
That's
prime?
a very real way.
So that's why I asked that question, because you got to you sacrificed the family early,
yes.
and I did it backwards. I took the family, and who knows? I might get that hit when I'm 50.
Hey,
I don't know.
1 million subscribers in 2023, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
That'll bring some
And that'll do it.
opportunities. That'll bring some opportunities.
I saw an interesting post that Colonel Sanders experienced so much rejection. He experienced his huge success later on in life. I mean, 50 is one of those magical years for men, I think, where you can,
I still got a long way to go.
Good for you. Good for you. I'm 50. I'm 55, and I have enjoyed all 55 of my years. And I'm looking at 60, and I'm hoping that in the next 5 years we'll be.
And you're probably going to be
better
the same, because you don't seem to age.
You don't seem like age.
Man, where can people find you? I appreciate you coming on here. You guys have to follow him, and once he gets his business up, you want to sign up for that, because it's a wealth of knowledge. So where can people find you?
Thank you. ChrisWillisMusic.com is the website. Instagram.com/ChrisWillisMusic. Facebook.com/ChrisWillisMusic. Twitter.com/ChrisWillisTwit.
Okay.
Nice. Where can I find you, homie?
Just Johnny Von, JUSTJONYVAN on all of your stuff. See, I did that just to see if he would do it.
No, you don't, because you do it every episode.
No, but I've been slowing it down until just now.
Goodness gracious.
It's just Johnny Von.
He slowed it down from cheetah to gazelle. Anyway, y'all know where to find me. I am Stone Stafford at stonestafford.com. And you can always do everything for Life on Podcast at, guess where?
lifeonpodcast.com.
Chris, again, we appreciate you,
Yes,
homie.
man.
I love you as always.
Thank
My
you.
man.
Love you too.
With the Benjamin
Brotherhood.
Button
Hey.
disease. Yeah. Yo, thanks for following us. Make sure you support. We see y'all next week. Peace.
So back to what I was saying. What I was saying.